Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Roll call by staff.
Hey, Commissioner Schneider?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Here.
Oh, who did you call?
Wilson.
Oh, starting with a W.
It starts with a W.
Okay, guys, easy, easy.
All right, Commissioner Fink?
Here.
Commissioner Wolf?
Here.
Commissioner Griffiths?
Here.
Commissioner Volkman?
Here.
Commissioner Hedstrom said he may be late or absent today. Yeah, I'll turn it over.
Minutes from our February 15th meeting. Any discussion? Motion for approval?
Motion to approve meetings from last meeting.
Is there a second? Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. And no new business? Site
Nope.
goals?
Okay, this is TXT 23-02. This is a follow-up and a continuation of the discussion that we started back in October of an amendment to Article 21, Supplementary Use Regulations, Conditional Uses, Accessory Uses, Prohibited Uses, establishing potential guidelines for commercial solar installations in unincorporated Dickinson County. Basically, what we'd like to do is I gave you quite a bit of material from different counties, and basically this is a continuation of what we started back in October this would include discussions on provisions for the placement of supplementary uses such as battery energy storage facilities as well. So in 2018, the zoning regulations were amended to include provisions for commercial wind energy conversion systems, with an amendment in 2022 at the request of Enel Green Power. Currently, our regulations do allow for on-site small-scale solar facilities used for supplemental power to an individually owned parcel or use. Larger scale solar facilities tied to the electric grid and occupying more than one parcel are currently not addressed. And that should be, as was pointed out, that should be DS&O, rather not Evergy, was approved for an 8-acre facility on land they own and tied to their substation near Solomon in 2022. Staff has investigated several counties in the region and have included their solar facility provisions for you to review. This includes the counties of Pawnee, Kingman, Allen, and Douglas. It should also be noted that Johnson County, which I did not include, also has identical language on solar provisions as Douglas County does. At the October Commission meeting, there were 2 questions that had been posed to staff regarding Johnson County's provisions, and the first was regarding the number of solar panels per acre. I believe that Commissioner Volkman had requested that were allowed, and upon investigation, Johnson County has no limit on the number of panels per acre. However, there is a maximum acreage for any one project, and that would be 1,000 acres. The second question was on bonding requirements. I think Commissioner Hedstrom had a question about that, and based on what I've read, Johnson County requires a decommissioning bond, basically in the amount estimated by a third party and satisfactory to the county engineer. This amount would be adjusted over time for inflation. Johnson County also has a performance bond requirement for road maintenance during the construction that is satisfied through their Public Works Department. This bond is not addressed in their zoning regulations, but through the road maintenance agreement. Both the decommissioning bond and the performance bond are currently a requirement in the Dickinson County zoning regulations for our wind energy provisions, and therefore we could probably have a reflection of those same provisions potentially for the solar as well. The following are the items and questions to consider in the development of provisions for alternative energy facilities and their accessory uses. The first thing I would direct you to would be the comprehensive plan. Although the county has adopted provisions for commercial wind power, the question that you should, probably ask would be, could larger scale solar and other alternative energy infrastructure be suited as to not have a detrimental impact on the rural character of the county? And what I would refer you to would be the economic and land use portions of your comprehensive plan, specifically pages 77 and 138. They give the provisions for rural preservation and development policies, and it addresses, I would look over all of those, not just the one pertaining to alternative energy. Under item number 2, safety, the commission should consider items such as the feasibility of emergency response from the fire districts and proof of projects compliance with NFPA, it's the National Fire Protection Association, and NEC, National Electrical Code Safety Requirements. Also, the commission may consider language about seismic testing, specific for the area for all facility elements. Any projectile impact testing available on all facility elements. If none such testing exists, the commission may include language requiring such testing. Any environmental testing as required by the EPA and KDHE. Many of these are already addressed also in the counties that I gave you, the examples. They usually have these types of similar language. Item number 3 is acreage limits. The commission may consider an acreage cap for solar facilities, and I would also say any alternative energy facilities. This could include a per project limit or a county-wide acreage limit. So that would mean, like, if somebody wants to, say, I want to put like what Douglas County says, they say 1,000 acres per project. Or you could do 1,000 acres total, where you would, or whatever acreage you would want, to cap it at, so that the limit would be on, how many of these facilities could actually locate in the county. The pre-application outreach is a big one for me. Right now in Saline County, we're going through pretty much this same process. And their planning commission is considering almost identically the same stuff that you guys are considering. The trouble is I think they may have, they're kind of trying to get ahead of the game over there, because they've already had people who are inquiring about solar over there, and but they have nothing in their regulations to address it. So everything's been kind of put on hold over there. But they're running into, one of the things that we've run into is that the public has mentioned was that they would like more pre-application outreach. That would be considering requiring the applicant to consult with or send notice to non-participating property owners within a specific radius of the project prior to submission of an application for a conditional use permit, to kind of let them know, hey, look, we're in the neighborhood. If you have any questions, let me know. What's the impact? Just kind of do an outreach with the general public. Item 5 is bonding and financing. Staff would strongly consider including language on the requirement of a performance bond, no letter of credit, to be submitted in an amount satisfactory to the county engineer. And we do have a third-party county engineer that we consult with on those from time to time in other projects. Item 6 is decommissioning. Consider language on decommissioning. This would include a bond in an amount acceptable to the county engineer. There are currently 3 methods, and I've learned this already in doing my research for Saline County, is 3 methods for decommissioning or removal of any kind of facility that's alternative energy facility, whether it's solar, wind, or whatever. And that is at the end of its useful life, one method to remove the infrastructure would be detonation. This is applicable to wind turbines and solar cells as well. The second is falling, which is cutting off the base and letting the wind turbine or any other facility, solar or whatever, hit the ground. This causes scattering of debris and contamination of the soil. And the third is reverse construction, which would mean basically disassembling the wind turbine or solar facility or battery energy storage facility, for that matter, in reverse order from the way it was installed initially. So so what I would say is those first two examples, the detonation and the falling, are not recommended by staff. So the third would be just basically taking it apart piece by piece. The options for the commission this evening would be to direct staff to develop language for alternatives to consider an amendment to be reviewed at the next meeting. Table for further evaluation and discussion of the submitted information provided by staff, or make no changes to our regulations on that with regard to the solar. And so what I would recommend, staff would recommend, since I gave you so much material to look over, I would recommend item 2 to give you guys a chance to really digest that from the other counties and see what direction you want to go with it. So with that, I would turn it over to the commissioners.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Tim?
Just a comment, there's a lot of information to digest.
It is, yes.
Question, you've got here the area that you said Evergy had it, and it's actually DSNO by
Yes.
Solomon. Is that in Dickinson County?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Well,
approved that
the
one.
one that we approved is in our county,
Okay, we
It's
did
like
it
right on the line.
but it's right on the line, and there's
one
one that's,
further down south.
yeah, that's
South of
south
17,
of
it's north of
Solomon,
17.
1700.
Okay,
Yeah,
and that's an 8 acre.
yeah, that's only 8 acres, and it's associated with DSNO
And I,
substation.
And they purchased that ground?
Yeah.
okay,
And so the other thing you would want to look at too is, do we want to look at large scale at all, or do we want to keep it the smaller scale like that are associated with existing utility companies and, available, they'd still have to go through a conditional use permit, but make them small acreages that are owned by the utility companies, where they would have to go through a conditional use permit like DSNO did. Or do you want just think something to chew on? Do you want the bigger ones also, or do you want just the smaller ones to stay?
Tim, are we mandated to have any regulation requiring solar?
It's if someone comes, not necessarily mandated, but if somebody comes and says, an applicant says, I want to, put a solar facility, larger scale solar facility on in our county right now, we would say you can't do it because we currently have nothing in our regulations addressing that.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
So it behooves us to have our ducks in a row,
Yeah, just get
Ready.
ready in
just in
case.
case.
Or just say no.
True. But there's however many of us sitting here. That may not always be an option,
Right.
so.
I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that is an option. Just say no. For me, driving by 8 acres, that's a large facility for me. I can't comprehend 1,000. A section 1 mile by 1 mile is 640 acres. So 1,000 acres.
You need to go down and look at the one in Douglas County. that's a large scale,
Yeah.
and it will give, I mean, seeing is believing. When you see, I'm taking what you're saying, yeah.
On 177 in Geary County, if you go
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 77, if you go south on the west side, there's a large one.
Because we could still have regs in place, but also still say no.
Right. Well, it would be one of those things, like with anything that would come before you as a conditional use, which would be, you could say this, if it doesn't meet the review criteria, you have the option of saying, no, you're not, we don't recommend it.
How big's the one in Douglas County?
At least 1,000 acres.
Yeah, you go out
It's
on
a big one.
24 from Lawrence headed over towards Perry, you'll see a lot of panels, a lot.
Are we opening anything up for public discussion?
Yeah, you can open it up for public discussion.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from the public regarding this particular item? Okay,
Well, I've just read a little bit.
Let
When
me-
if they,
let me read this real quick
sorry.
before you, and if you want, do you want to go up to the podium, right, Tim?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
if you go up to the podium there.
It's not very close, sorry about
I
that.
apologize.
We're gonna follow, but you're invited
You can-
to come up and speak, yep. And you just give your name and address, and proceed with your questions and comments. And then, you don't have an applicant. Limit your remarks, of course, and don't repeat comments. And Tim will keep track of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be fine.
Yeah.
But we'll attempt to be fair, and any zoning changes, uses, or subdivision proposals will go through this board of commissioners. That doesn't pertain.
No.
So, yep, you should be good.
So you
Making
can,
sure we're being
yeah,
above board.
I'm Steve Johnson, 1536 Nail Road, Enterprise, Kansas. It's probably more of a question than a statement. I've just read some articles about after, like say, after they were decommissioned, would the ground even be able to be farmed? Because I was thinking there was, I'm not sure what they called it, but it went into the soil, That was just kind of a question. I didn't know if anybody had any.
just based on what I've read, if you don't mind.
No, yeah.
Because you'll find it too, is, like in particular Douglas County, they're an urban county. They're more highly dense, with residential. So they're very big on preserving whatever ag land they've got. And so one of the things that they've done in their regulations is require a height of those solar panels, of what they're mounted on, a 10-foot height, to give people enough room to plant. Now they're saying native grass, but if they want to keep the soil viable for when it does get decommissioned and it can be reused again, so that there's no. So what happens is the way those solar cells work is that they follow the sun.
Right.
And if they're up that high enough sun will get down there and help, and energize that soil. But I said that's something that this body can consider also in our regulations, is just keeping that height up and requiring a planting so that soil stays viable.
Yeah, I don't know, I remember reading and something to do if the hail hit them or they would leak something, I should have read the article better. So it's more of a question. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
My name is Pam Wells, and my address is 1343 1600 Avenue, Enterprise. I believe what Mr. Johnson was referring to was a hail storm that damaged some solar panels in Nebraska, and whatever it is that's in them that comes out destroys the ground. And this is a rural farming community also, and I don't believe it's appropriate for our area. And I agree that we could have some regulations that would make it possible for them to come in. And that's what I would ask you to consider. And we currently, I know we're not addressing this right at the moment, but we currently have at least 180 acres of our land that's gonna have, if they get their way, 700-foot tall, 698-foot tall, a third times taller than what Marion has, right across the street from me. And I didn't know anything about it, and regulations have been being signed, or regulations were approved in 2018, I believe.
Yes.
And they've been signing contracts since 2015 in secret, and we just found out about it in June. And we are looking to move. We will not stay in Dickinson County. Just so you know. And if anybody has any questions, I'll answer them, I'm sorry. I'm just very emotional about this issue. This is my home.
And at
It
this
was
time,
my home.
and at this time, nothing's approved by the county.
No.
So just be aware of that as well. It has not even come across our table.
I know it's taken over my life, so I know.
But just be aware, it has not approached us yet, so.
I know.
All right, any other questions on this particular comment? Okay. Commission, how would you guys like to proceed with this one? With Tim's suggestion with item number 2?
Yeah.
I feel comfortable with that one as well.
I would rather like go read over everything you got.
Thank you for the homework.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's totally necessary. We need to brush up on it and get an idea.
Yeah.
Do you have a motion to move forward with that?
A motion to table it for further evaluation and discussion of the submitted information provided to us.
Okay, you have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, no opposed, we will move forward with tabling it. And do your homework, further discussion.
And just to let the public know also, we're not going to have a hearing in April. We won't have, number one, we don't have any new applications submitted for review, and also we won't have any security detail upstairs because they'll be preoccupied somewhere else. So we will meet in May, on May 16th. And that'll give you enough time, I think, to at least look it over.
Yeah.
And but that's all I had. I was gonna go over some miscellaneous
Okay.
stuff and some training.
Mr. Hamilton,
Yes.
I apologize. I forgot to say the main thing that I got up to say. I got so emotional.
Okay.
I do think that the idea of before they file them notifying adjoining landowners is a good idea.
Yeah, that's,
Rather than being.
well, I'll tell you, and I apologize for, but I said I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background on that also is where I'm working in Saline County as well, there was a battery energy storage facility that went up for consideration by their planning commission last year. And it was basically shot down because one of the reasons was because they failed to meet with the proper, the people around that area and just kind of do an outreach and say, hey, look, this is us. This is what we're going to be doing. And give them some information. And instead of being hit all at once with this stuff, and that really caused a problem with the public. It was like, what's going on? So this would help immensely, that aspect of it. The public outreach is a big deal with a project like that.
Agreed.
So the miscellaneous that I've got, I just wanted to kind of go over some procedural review and board responsibilities. We've got basically 3 new members that we've had for about 2 years. We've had a pretty good turnover of the board, and I don't think I really gave a thorough enough, kind of training or review of the responsibilities of the board. So I do this, I'm required to do this every year, but usually, I mean, we're all pretty much familiar with it. If you're pretty much familiar with it, I let it kind of go, you know, and of course you can always ask me questions about procedures, but the reason we're doing this now is because we've got at least 2 new members the past year, so, and I think it would be good to review this. It's not gonna take long. This review is intended to function as both a refresher course for the established commissioners and kind of an initial training for new members, because there have been 3 new members appointed over the past at least year and a half. Staff felt this would be a good opportunity to evaluate board procedures and responsibilities prior to the submittal of the wind energy proposal. This is anticipated to be scheduled for public hearing either in June or July. Nothing has been submitted, and it's kind of fluid at this point. We don't know when it's going to be submitted. So item number 1 is Dickinson County Planning Commission is composed of 7 members. By state statute, counties may have as few as 5 or a maximum of 9 commissioners. The majority of commissioners must reside within an unincorporated part of the county, which means you can have some people who reside in the city that are on the board as well, but the majority have to be in unincorporated areas. The more commissioners, the better, because the representation for various areas within the county that might not be all that populous, you know, the more commissioners you have, the better chance you have of representing those that aren't as, those areas that aren't as well represented. The Planning Commission is responsible for making recommendations to the County Commission on land use cases involving conditional use permits, zoning requests, and final plats. It also makes recommendations on amendments to the comprehensive plan, zoning regulations, and subdivision regulations. Item 3, the Commission has quasi-judicial or final authority on cases involving subdivision exceptions and preliminary plats and site plan approvals. Also, per state statute, planning commissioners may also function as the Board of Zoning Appeals. The BZA is a quasi-judicial board and it hears any appeals from citizens or any agency regarding interpretation of the regulations. They also hear cases involving variances from the regulations, including those involving floodplain development. Item number 5, ex parte communications. This is a big one. Discussion of any agenda items between either the public or other commissioners prior to the public hearing is discouraged. In the event any commissioner is approached by a member of the public, including any applicant, such communication must be revealed during the public hearing so it may be noted in the record. Conflicts of interest, it is at the discretion of the individual commissioner or commissioners to recuse themselves if a perceived conflict of interest or appearance of improper fiscal gain or bias may exist between the commissioner and any individual associated with an agenda item under consideration. This is pretty vague. It's one of those things where if you feel like you shouldn't be, you know, on the case, then you can recuse yourself. If not, you just, you know, if you have any questions, just talk to me about it and I'll try to give you some guidance on it. But we've never really had anything come close to having anyone having to recuse themselves. I think maybe once way back a long time ago when I first started, we had a case where they had to recuse themselves. But lately there's not been any situation like that. So consideration of agenda items. In considering agenda items, commissioners must refrain from any comments which would be construed as opinion outside of the scope of the evaluation criteria that I give you in the conditional use permit review outlined in the zoning regulations. The reasoning for approval or denial of an applicant must be based on the findings presented and not personal feelings towards the applicant or the proposal. Item 8 is the upcoming Enel Green Power wind farm, just kind of an update on that. Currently, there is no application submitted by Enel for consideration. The county is anticipating documentation in late March or early April. But again, that's all kind of fluid. We don't know when that's going to be submitted. The public hearing is not going to be scheduled until the county staff is able to confirm a completed application. So I've got to review everything that they submit, and a date or dates that will afford the presence of, I'll say, the majority of planning commissioners. I've got all planning commissioners, but it would be preferred that we would have all, but if we can't, that's fine. I'll just say the majority of planning commissioners. The venue, right now, the county is tentatively planning on holding the public hearing at the Harrington Civic Center, since it is the most modern facility that can accommodate over 300 people. It also has technical facilities which would aid staff and the applicant for their presentations, and it would also help the commissioners as well. I believe they've got a large screen like this, but they can do multitask on the screen. So the timing, ideally the county is looking at one hearing date, possibly of 6 hours, or 2 dates of 3 hours each. That's tentative. We don't know yet. We don't know how we're going to handle this. This just kind of gives you an idea. Attention span is a big deal. I said if we go over 2 or 3 hours with just public hearing, it's going to get really kind of tiresome. And so it may be one of those things where you'll have to just kind of put it off until the next hearing, until the next meeting. And the next meeting would probably be the following week, is what we're trying to get an idea of how we're going to space these, if that's necessary. This format may be modified for additional hearings if necessary. If the chair is satisfied that all individuals have had a chance to comment before the time is allotted, before the time allotted is complete. So in other words, if that prior to that 4 hours or whatever, 6 hours, if you're satisfied that all the public comment has been heard, then you can close the public hearing. The public will be given no more than 3 minutes each to present their comments and questions. This is to help expedite the process. Either county staff or the commission chair may keep time. If you want to, I'll keep the time, if you would prefer. The comment prioritizing, this was a big deal for us because we spoke to Marion County and they said that they did it this way, which is individuals receiving the notice within 1,000 feet of the project boundaries will be given priority during the comment period, followed by those living in the county but outside the notification area. This would be followed by those who own property but not residing within the county, and last group allowed to speak would be those with no investment and not residing within the county. With that, as I said before, what we will do is for the next meeting in May, we're going to have our reorganization, our annual reorganization then, since we can't meet next month. And we'll talk more about this case TXT 2302, and I'll know more then about the Enel project, and we can go from there. So we've got May 16th is the next meeting. Annual reorganization of the board will be held at that meeting. So with that, if you have any other questions for me or comments.
Anyone have anything for Tim? So I have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
A second.
I would like to second that, please.
All those in favor, have a great evening. Or whatever weather is left.
I'll be reading.
What's that?
I'll be reading.
I know, right? All good.